Queen Zarethek sat on her tall crystal throne in the biggest room of her warship. The room was huge and filled with bright lights that came from the walls. Her body was 9 feet tall and covered in hard shell-like skin that looked like armor. She had 4 arms, each one strong enough to crush metal. Her eyes glowed red in the dark. Around her stood her war leaders. They were all like her, tall and covered in the same hard shells. Some had scars from old battles. Others had metal parts where they lost pieces of their bodies in fights. All of them carried plasma guns that could burn through anything. The Velthari had been winning wars for 300 years. They had taken over 17 different star systems. Every time they found a new world with people on it, they would attack and win. No one could stop them. Their ships were faster, their guns were stronger, and their soldiers were better trained than anyone else in the galaxy. But today, something was wrong. General Kethmer stepped forward. His face looked worried, which was strange, because he never looked worried about anything. He was the kind of soldier who would fight a dragon with his bare hands and laugh about it. "My queen," he said, his voice deep and rough, "we have a problem. 3 of our patrol groups have gone missing near a small blue planet called Earth." "Queen." Zarethek lifted one of her 4 hands. "Missing? How can our ships go missing? We have the best technology in the galaxy." "That's what makes this so strange," General Kethmer said. He touched a button on his arm, and pictures appeared in the air above them. The pictures showed a small blue and green planet with 1 moon. The few soldiers who came back tell crazy stories. They say the humans on this planet fight like demons. Another war leader, Commander Vextal, made a sound like laughing, but meaner. "Demons? These humans are just babies compared to us. Look at their ships." More pictures appeared. The human ships looked like metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. "They use old chemical rockets. We use quantum drives. They shoot metal. Bullets. We shoot plasma beams. How could they possibly hurt us?" But General Kethmer shook his head. "The survivors say these humans do impossible things. They say 1 human destroyed an entire squadron of our fighters. They say humans fight even when they should be dead. They say humans never give up even when they have no chance to win." Queen Zarethek stood up from her throne. When she stood, she was taller than everyone else in the room. "You're telling me that a bunch of primitive creatures with toy weapons defeated our warriors? Our warriors who have conquered half the galaxy? I know it sounds crazy," General Kethmer said, "but we lost 60 ships and over 2,000 soldiers. The humans call their fighters legends and heroes. Our soldiers are starting to believe these stories." The queen walked down from her throne to a big window that looked out into space. She could see hundreds of her warships floating in the darkness. Each ship was bigger than a city and had enough firepower to destroy a moon. How could creatures from 1 small planet cause trouble for such a mighty fleet? She had read the reports about humans. They were a young species that had only recently learned to travel between planets. Their technology was hundreds of years behind the Velthari. Their governments fought with each other instead of working together. They should have been easy to defeat. "Tell me about their weapons," she said without turning around. Commander Vextal stepped forward. "They use kinetic weapons, mostly. Metal bullets fired by chemical explosions. Some energy weapons, but very basic ones. Their armor is made of simple metals and ceramics. A child with a plasma rifle could cut through it. And their ships? Slow and clumsy. They use fusion reactors for power, which is better than some species we've fought, but still far behind our antimatter drives. Their biggest ships are smaller than our medium cruisers." Queen Zarethek turned back to face her war council. "Then how did they destroy 60 of our ships?" General Kethmer looked uncomfortable. "The survivors say the humans don't fight like..." Normal people. They say humans will crash their ships into ours on purpose. They say humans keep fighting, even when they're badly hurt. One soldier told me he saw a human keep shooting, even after losing an arm. Impossible, Commander Vextel said. No intelligent creature would throw away their life like that. But the Queen was thinking. She had conquered many worlds, and every species they met eventually surrendered when they realized they couldn't win. It was logical. Why keep fighting when you knew you would lose? But if these humans really didn't surrender, that could be a problem. How many humans are there? She asked. About 8 billion on their homeworld, General Kethmer said. Maybe 2 billion more on their colonies. Queen Zarathak made a decision. Send the Third Conquest Fleet to Earth. If these humans want to fight, we'll show them what real warriors look like. We'll burn their cities and take their world. Then the galaxy will remember why everyone fears the Velthari. The war leaders bowed and started to leave, but the Queen called them back. And if any of our soldiers start believing these silly stories about human legends, remind them that legends are just stories. Stories can't stop plasma cannons. But as her war leaders left to prepare for battle, Queen Zarathak looked out at the stars again. Deep in her mind, a small voice wondered if maybe, just maybe, some legends might be true. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiant, looking out at the stars through the big front window. The Defiant was humanity's newest heavy cruiser, built in the orbital shipyards above Earth. It was 800 feet long and carried enough firepower to level the city. To Jake, it was home. The ship had been patrolling the edge of human space for 3 months. Out here, the stars looked different than they did from Earth. They were brighter and more colorful. Sometimes Jake would see things that made him remember why he loved being out here among the stars. Captain, called Lieutenant Kate Sullivan from her weapons station. We're getting a signal from New Haven Colony. They're asking for help. Jake turned away from the window. New Haven was a farming colony on a planet called Kepler 442b. About 50,000 people lived there, growing food that was sent back to Earth and the other human worlds. It was a peaceful place where nothing exciting ever happened. What kind of help? Jake asked. They're not sure. They're picking up some kind of ships coming toward their system. Big ships, really big. Jake felt his stomach twist. For the past few weeks, there had been rumors about missing patrol ships near the outer colonies. Command hadn't told them much, but Jake had heard whispers about alien contact. Not the friendly kind. How long until we reach New Haven? He asked. Chief Engineer Pete Collins looked up from his station. At maximum speed, about 6 hours. Do it. The Defiant's engines roared to life, pushing the ship faster than it was supposed to go. Jake knew Pete was probably breaking a few safety rules, but that was okay. Pete had been fixing engines since before Jake was born, and he knew what he was doing. 6 hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace near New Haven. What Jake saw made his blood run cold. 50 huge alien ships surrounded the colony world. Each ship was at least twice the size of the Defiant. They were dark and covered in spikes, like giant sea creatures made of metal. My God, whispered Kate, look at the size of those things. Jake had served in the asteroid belt wars, where human miners fought corporate security forces for the right to mine rocks in space. He had seen plenty of battles and thought he knew what war looked like. But this was different. This was like a pack of wolves surrounding a lamb. Captain, said the communications officer, I'm getting a message from the colony. They're under attack. On the main screen, Jake could see beams of bright blue light shooting down from the alien ships. Where the beams hit the ground, explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The colony's defense satellites were trying to fight back, but their weapons barely scratched the alien ships. Orders, sir? Kate asked. Jake looked at the odds. 50 alien ships against his one cruiser and 2 small escort frigates. Any sane military commander would retreat and call for backup. But Jake wasn't feeling very sane right now. "We're going in," he said. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew it was probably suicide, but no one argued. The crew of the Defiant were all volunteers who had signed up knowing they might never go home again. Jake's plan was simple and crazy. Instead of trying to fight the aliens in open space, where their bigger ships had the advantage, he would use the colony's industrial facilities as cover. New Haven had asteroid mining operations and cargo haulers that could be turned into weapons. Kate, target their lead ship with everything we have. Pete, I need you to overload the fusion reactor. Give me every bit of power you can. Captain, if I do that, we might not have enough power for life support, Pete said. Then we better finish this fight fast. The Defiant dove toward the planet like a falling star. The alien ships turned their weapons on the small human cruiser. But Jake was already moving too fast for them to get a clean shot. Blue plasma beams shot past the ship, close enough that Jake could feel the heat through the hull. The first alien ship exploded when Kate's railgun rounds punched through its armor. The aliens had better weapons, but they weren't expecting humans to fight at such close range. Jake flew the Defiant between the alien ships, using their own size against them. Captain, the colony's mining laser is online, Kate reported. They're using it as a weapon, Jake smiled. The mining laser was designed to cut through asteroids, but it worked just as well on alien ships. One of the enemy vessels started to break apart as the laser cut through its hull like a knife through butter, but the aliens were learning fast. They started to spread out, trying to surround the Defiant. Jake knew his ship couldn't take much more damage. The hull was already cracked in 3 places, and the engines were starting to overheat. Pete, how much longer can you give me? Jake called. Maybe 10 minutes before the reactor goes critical, Pete replied. That was when Jake had his most crazy idea yet. He opened a channel to the cargo haulers in the colony's asteroid belt. This is Captain Morrison. I need volunteers for a suicide mission. Within minutes, 12 cargo haulers were flying toward the alien fleet. These ships weren't built for fighting, but they were big and sturdy and filled with mining explosives. The hauler pilots flew straight at the alien ships, crashing into them like guided missiles. Each collision was like a small star being born. The explosions lit up space and sent pieces of alien ships flying in all directions. The enemy fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, was suddenly in the chaos. But Jake knew the Defiant was dying. The reactor was about to explode, and half the ship was on fire. He had one last trick to play. All hands abandon ship, he ordered. Kate, set the reactor to overload on my mark. Captain, what are you doing? Kate asked. Something stupid. Jake said, now go. Jake flew the dying Defiant straight at the biggest alien ship. At the last second, he activated the reactor overload and ejected in an escape pod. The Defiant hit the alien ship, and both vessels disappeared in a ball of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. When the explosion faded, 8 alien ships were gone, and the rest were retreating. The colony was saved, but at a terrible cost. The Defiant and most of her crew were dead. Jake's escape pod was picked up by a rescue ship 3 hours later. As he looked back at the debris field where his ship had died, he activated his emergency transmitter and sent a message back to Earth. This is Captain Jake Morrison. The Defiant is gone, but we stopped them. Tell Command that these aliens are tough, but they're not invincible. Tell them that humans don't break. Tell them we made the bastards pay. The message would reach Earth in 6 days. When it did, everything would change. President Lisa Carter stood at the podium in the United Earth Assembly Hall. Behind her, the flags of 12 human worlds hung in a row. In front of her, representatives from every human colony sat in silent rows. Everyone was waiting to hear what she would say. News of the Battle of New Haven had reached Earth 6 days ago. Captain Jake Morrison's final message played on every news channel across human space. The images of burning alien ships mixed with pictures of the destroyed colony had made people angry in a way they hadn't been since the corporate wars ended 20 years ago. Lisa looked out at the crowd. She was 55 years old and had been president for 3 years. Before that, she had been a general in the Earth Defense Force. She knew what war looked like, and she knew what it cost. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 6 days ago, we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that we have enemies. The hall stayed quiet, but Lisa could feel the tension in the air, like electricity before a storm. These aliens, these Velthari, came to New Haven expecting an easy victory. They thought humans were weak. They thought we would run away or surrender. When we saw their big ships and powerful weapons, they were wrong. Lisa touched a button on the podium. Behind her, a huge screen lit up with Captain Morrison's face. The recording of his final message began to play. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. The Defiant is gone, but we stopped them. Tell Command that these aliens are tough, but they're not invincible. Tell them that humans don't break. Tell them we made the bastards pay." When the message ended, the hall erupted. People were on their feet, shouting and clapping. Some were crying. Lisa waited for the noise to die down before she spoke again. Captain Morrison and his crew showed us something important. They showed us that these aliens can be beaten. They also showed us what we're fighting for. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right to exist. We're fighting for our children and their children. Lisa paused and looked around the room. As of today, Earth and all human colonies are at war. Every factory, every shipyard, every laboratory will be turned toward one goal: defending humanity. The transformation began immediately. On Earth, car factories stopped making cars and started making weapons. Shipyards that built cargo haulers began constructing warships. Research laboratories abandoned their civilian projects and focused on military technology. Colonel Danny Rodriguez was put in charge of the first human special forces unit designed to fight aliens. Danny was a small man, only 5 feet 6 inches tall, but he was tough as steel cable. He had fought in the Martian Independence War and the Titan Rebellion. He knew how to win fights against bigger, stronger enemies. "The aliens are bigger than us and stronger than us," Danny told his team of volunteers. "Their technology is better than ours, but they have one big weakness. They don't know how to fight dirty." Danny's commandos were taught to do things that would shock the aliens. They learned to fight in zero gravity, using the lack of weight, to move in ways the heavy Velthari couldn't match. They learned to turn civilian equipment into weapons. Most importantly, they learned to never give up, no matter how bad things looked. The first commando raid happened 3 weeks after New Haven. Danny and 12 volunteers attacked a Velthari listening post on the edge of human space. The aliens were expecting a normal military assault with ships and soldiers. Instead, they got something they had never seen before. The humans came in a modified cargo hauler that looked like it was carrying mining equipment. When they got close to the alien station, the mining equipment turned out to be soldiers in spacesuits, armed with weapons that shot streams of molten metal. The aliens had never fought boarding parties before. They didn't know what to do when humans started cutting through their hull with industrial torches. The raid was a complete success. The humans destroyed the listening post and escaped with valuable intelligence about Velthari technology. More importantly, they proved that aliens could be beaten by small groups of determined humans. Dr. Amy Foster was working at the Mars Technical Institute when the war started. She was a weapons designer who specialized in kinetic systems, guns that shot physical bullets instead of energy beams. When the military asked her to study captured Velthari equipment, she made discoveries that changed everything. The aliens' energy shields are designed to stop plasma weapons and lasers, Amy explained to a room full of military officers. But they're not very good at stopping solid objects moving at high speed. A simple steel bullet can punch right through. Their best shields. Amy's team developed new weapons that took advantage of this weakness. They created bullets that were guided by tiny computers, allowing them to change direction in flight. They built railguns that could shoot projectiles fast enough to punch through the hull of an alien battleship. Most importantly, they figured out how to make these weapons using materials that humans already had. Captain Steve Williams was chosen to lead the first squadron of human fighters built specifically to fight the Velthari. Steve had been a civilian pilot before the war, flying cargo ships between the outer colonies. He knew how to handle a ship in conditions that would make most military pilots sick. The new fighters were called Wasps, and they looked nothing like traditional military aircraft. They were small, fast, and could change direction so quickly that they seemed to teleport. Most importantly, they were designed to be flown by humans who had grown up in Earth's chaotic atmosphere. The aliens learned to fly in the vacuous space, Steve explained to his pilots. They're used to predictable conditions where everything follows neat rules. We learn to fly in storms and turbulence and crosswinds that change every second. That's our advantage. The first test of the Wasp fighters came when a Velthari patrol squadron attacked the mining colony on Ceres. Steve led 24 Wasps against 8 alien cruisers. On paper, it should have been a massacre. The alien ships were bigger, better armed, and better armored. But the Wasps fought like their namesakes, darting in to sting and then flying away before the aliens could react. They used the asteroid field around Ceres as cover, hiding behind rocks and popping out to attack. The alien ships, designed for fighting in open space, couldn't maneuver well among the asteroids. By the end of the battle, 6 alien ships were destroyed, and the other 2 were retreating. Steve's squadron had lost only 3 fighters. The victory was broadcast across human space, and suddenly everyone wanted to join the fighter corps. As news of human victory spread, something unexpected happened. The Velthari Empire, which had been winning wars for 300 years, found itself fighting an enemy that got stronger with every battle. Every time they destroyed a human ship, 2 more would appear. Every time they developed a new weapon, humans would find a way to counter it within weeks. Queen Zarethak, sitting in her throne room, received reports that made no sense to her. How could a primitive species adapt so quickly? How could they turn defeats into victories? How could they keep fighting when logic said they should surrender? The answer was something the Velthari had never encountered before, a species that had evolved on a world where survival required constant adaptation. Humans didn't just fight wars, they learned from them. Every battle taught them something new about their enemies. Every defeat made them more determined to win. The war that Queen Zarethak thought would last a few weeks was now entering its 3rd month, and the humans were getting stronger every day. Queen Zarethak stared at the holographic display floating above her throne room table. The blue lights showed the current positions of her fleets across the galaxy. 3 months ago, the display had been mostly green, showing Velthari victories and controlled territory. Now, large sections glowed red, marking human resistance and areas where her forces had been pushed back. General Kethmer stood beside the display, his 4 arms folded across his chest. His exoskeleton showed new battle, scars from recent fights with human forces. Your Majesty, we need to talk about the situation with the humans. What situation? The Queen asked, though she already knew the answer. We are winning this war. Are we? General Kethmer touched the display, and numbers appeared in the air. We've lost 47 ships in the last month. The humans have destroyed 3 of our listening posts and 2 supply depots. Our 3rd conquest fleet is down to half strength. Queen Zarathek felt a strange emotion she hadn't experienced in years. Doubt. For 3 centuries, the Velthari had conquered world after world with the same strategy. Overwhelming force, superior technology, and the absolute certainty that they were better than their enemies. It had always worked before. The humans are just lucky, she said, but the words sounded hollow even to her. Commander Vixtal entered the throne room, his usually confident stride replaced by something that looked almost like fear. My queen, we've intercepted human communications. You need to hear this. The air above them filled with the voices of human soldiers talking to each other during a recent battle. The Queen listened to words in a language she was still learning to understand. Delta Squad, this is command. You're outnumbered 10 to 1. Fall back to secondary positions. Negative, command. We've got civilians to protect. We're staying. Delta Squad, that's a direct order. Retreat now. Sorry, command. Can't hear you. Must be interference. The recording continued with the sounds of weapons fire and explosions. When it ended, Commander Vextal looked at the Queen with confusion in his eyes. They disobeyed their own commanders to protect people they'd never met. Why would they do that? Queen Zarathek had no answer. In Velthari culture, orders were followed without question. Disobedience meant death. But these humans seemed to think for themselves, making decisions based on something other than military hierarchy. Show me more, she commanded. The next recording was from the battle where Captain Steve Williams and his fighter squadron had defeated 2 Velthari cruisers. The Queen listened to the human pilots talking during the fight. Wasp leader, I'm hit bad. My ship's falling apart. Can you make it? Back to base, Wasp 7? Negative. But I can take one of these alien bastards with me. Wasp 7, don't do it. We can get you out of there. Too late, boss. Tell my wife I love her. Wasp 7 going out in style. The recording ended with the sound of an explosion. Queen Zarathek turned to General Kethmer. This pilot destroyed. Himself to damage our ship? Yes, Your Majesty. We've seen this behavior repeatedly. Humans seem willing to sacrifice their lives for their comrades or their mission. We don't understand it. The Queen was quiet for a long time. In Velthari culture, individual survival was paramount. Soldiers were expected to retreat if victory was impossible. Self-sacrifice was considered wasteful and illogical. But somehow, human self-sacrifice was making them stronger, not weaker. Bring me a human prisoner, she commanded. I want to understand these creatures. 2 days later, Commander Rachel Torres stood in chains before the Velthari Queen. Rachel was 32, years old, and had been captured during a failed boarding action on a Velthari supply ship. She was small compared to the aliens around her, barely 5.5 feet tall, but she stood straight and looked directly at the Queen without fear. Queen Zarathek studied the human woman. Rachel's uniform was torn and burned from the battle. She had a cut on her forehead that was still bleeding, but her eyes were bright and alert, and she showed no signs of the terror that usually filled prisoners of war. You are Commander Rachel Torres of the Earth Defense Force, the Queen said in carefully pronounced English. That's right, Rachel replied. And you're the alien queen who thinks she can conquer humanity. How's that working out for you? The throne room went silent. Several Velthari warriors reached for their weapons. No one had ever spoken to Queen Zarathak with such disrespect. But the queen held up one of her hands, stopping them. "You are my prisoner," the queen said. "I could have you killed right now," Rachel shrugged. "Go ahead, kill me, and 10 more humans will take my place. Kill them, and 100 more will volunteer. We're not like your other enemies. We don't quit just because things get tough." "Why? Do you fight?" the queen asked. "Your technology is inferior. Your ships are smaller. Your weapons are weaker. Logic says you should surrender." "Logic?" Rachel laughed, a sound that seemed strange in the cold throne room. "You want to know about logic? Here's some logic for you. You came to our worlds and started killing our people. You want to turn us into slaves or wipe us out completely. So we fight back. It's that simple." "But you cannot win," Queen Zarathak said. "We have conquered 17 star systems. We have technology you cannot match. We have more ships than you can count." "Maybe," Rachel said. "But you've never fought anyone like us before, have you? All those other species you conquered, they fought the way you expected them to fight. They followed the rules. They used tactics. From textbooks, they gave up when the odds got too bad." Rachel took a step forward, her chains clanking. "We don't follow your rules. We don't fight fair. We don't give up ever. You want to know why? Because we're not fighting for glory or conquest. We're fighting for our right to exist. We're fighting for our children's future. You can't negotiate with that. You can't scare it away. You can only beat it by killing every last one of us." The queen felt something she had never experienced before, a chill of genuine fear. "And you would do that? You would all die rather. And surrender?" "In a heartbeat," Rachel said without hesitation. "And the thing is, every time you kill one of us, you make the rest of us more determined. Every human who dies becomes a symbol that makes 100 others want to fight. You're not just fighting our military. You're fighting our entire species." That night, Queen Zarathak ordered Rachel's execution, but the human's words echoed in the royal chambers long after she was gone. The queen found herself asking questions she had never asked before. What if the humans were right? What if this war was different from all the others? The next morning brought news that made the queen's doubts even stronger. A human fleet had attacked the Velthari mining colony on Zirian 7. The attack had been led by Colonel Danny Rodriguez and his special forces, but they hadn't fought alone. The humans had somehow convinced 3 different alien species to join them. Species that the Velthari had conquered years ago were now fighting alongside humanity. How is this possible? The queen demanded. General Kethmer looked tired. The humans offered them something we never did, Your Majesty. They offered them partnership instead of slavery. They treat their allies as equals, not as subjects. Queen Zarathak walked to the great window of her throne room and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were probably planning their next attack. They were learning from every battle, adapting to every Velthari tactic, and growing stronger with each passing day. For the first time in her 300-year reign, Queen Zarathak faced the possibility that she might lose a war. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were something new, something her empire had never encountered before. They were survivors who had learned to thrive on a world where only the adaptable lived. And now they were bringing that survival instinct to the stars. The final battle began at dawn on a Tuesday in Earth's solar system. Queen Zarathak led her remaining fleet of 200 ships through the outer edge of the asteroid belt, heading straight for Earth. She had decided to end this war once and for all by destroying the human home world. "Today we finish what we started," she announced to her fleet commanders. "The humans have been lucky, but luck runs out. Today they faced the full might of the Velthari Empire. But as her ships moved closer to Earth, the Queen saw something that made her doubt her words. The space around Earth wasn't empty. Hundreds of structures floated in the darkness, connected by shimmering energy fields. They looked like a spider web made of metal and light, stretching from Earth's moon all the way to Mars. "What is that?" she asked General Kethmer. "Intelligence reports call it Earth's Gate," he replied. "The humans have been building it for the past 2 months. We're not sure what it does." Admiral Sam Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Yorktown, watching the alien fleet approach. Sam was 62 years old and had been fighting in space for most of his adult life. He had started as a mining ship pilot in the asteroid belt wars, where he learned that the best way to win a fight was to use every advantage you could find. The Gate was Sam's masterpiece. It wasn't just a defensive system. It was a weapon that used the entire solar system as its battlefield. The structures that Queen Zarethak saw were mobile platforms connected by electromagnetic fields. They could move and reconfigure themselves in minutes, turning space itself into a trap. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Beth Johnson from her station, "the alien fleet is entering the outer perimeter." "Good," Sam said. "Let them come. Kate, are all platforms ready?" Commander Kate Williams, Steve's sister and the Gate's tactical coordinator, nodded. "All platforms are online and connected. We have 80 ships ready for combat, with another 40 in reserve." Sam looked at the odds. 200 alien ships against 80 human vessels. On paper, it looked like another impossible fight. But Sam had learned something important during his years of fighting. Numbers didn't always determine the winner. The battle began when the Velthari fleet reached Earth's moon. Queen Zarethak expected to see the humans hiding behind their planet, waiting to be destroyed. Instead, she found herself facing something she had never seen before. The Gate came alive like a living thing. The platforms began to move, creating passages and obstacles that channeled the alien ships into predetermined paths. Human fighters swarmed out of hidden bays, moving in 3-dimensional formations that made the Queen dizzy to watch. There, using the entire solar system as a battlefield, General Kethmer said in amazement, "How is that possible?" The answer was simple. Humans had learned to fight in 3 dimensions while the Velthari were still thinking in terms of flat naval battles. The Gate allowed human forces to attack from above, below, and all sides at once. Alien ships found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see coming. Captain Steve Williams led his fighter squadron through a gap in the alien formation, his Wasp darting between enemy ships like a bird through a forest. Behind him, 23 other pilots followed in perfect formation, their ships moving as one unit. "Wasp Squadron, target the lead cruiser," Steve called over the radio. "Hit it with everything we've got." The human fighters dove toward the alien ship, their weapons carving bright lines through space. The Velthari cruiser's shields flared and died under the concentrated assault. When the smoke cleared, the ship was breaking apart, but the aliens weren't helpless. Their plasma weapons reached out like burning fingers, destroying human fighters and platforms. The space around Earth filled with explosions and debris. Ships from both sides died in the cold vacuum, their crews lost forever. Queen Zarethak found herself in single combat with Admiral Parker when both their ships were damaged. Near Earth's moon, the Velthari flagship had been crippled by human torpedoes, while Parker's cruiser had taken plasma hits that left it drifting without power. The Queen's personal shuttle docked with the human ship, and she made her way through the damaged corridors to the bridge. She expected to find Parker cowering in fear, ready to surrender. Instead, she found him waiting for her with a smile on his face. "Welcome aboard the Yorktown," Sam said. as if he were greeting a dinner guest instead of an enemy queen. I was wondering when we'd finally meet face to face. Queen Zarafak was 9 feet tall and covered in armor-like exoskeleton. Admiral Parker was barely 6 feet tall and wore a simple military uniform. But when they faced each other in the zero gravity of the damaged bridge, it was clear who had the advantage. Parker moved through the weightless environment like he was born to it, using handholds and pushing.